Jason Ufema, owner, Shy Bear Brewing, and Rich Coast Coffee.
All right, perfect. So with Shy Bear Brewing, when did you first come up with the idea for Shy Bear?
We started the idea of Shy Bear in 2012 initially, and then, the name didn't come until later. The concept of wanting to build a brewery was about 2012. 2015 is when we first got the ball rolling with legal and finding the right engineering firm and land development project. So that's, I would say, 2015, 2016 in that realm was when things really started to come together. I guess when we start paying for things.
Yeah, exactly. When it started counting. And talk a little bit about Lewistown, Pennsylvania. Talk about the kind of community and that kind of geographically where you guys are located in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Lewistown is truly in the very center of the state. Not exactly in the center, but yeah, there's a lot of conjecture of that. But we are 20 minutes south or 20 miles south of State College on the south side of the Seven Mountains, as it's called. And then about 60 miles northeast, 60 miles northwest of Harrisburg. So we're basically between those two markets, and my father built his home here in the 60s and on this property, and his childhood home was this house that's at the bottom of the lane. So this was this always seemed like the right place to do something like this, and also the work-life balance of being able to be at the brewery or be at Rich Coast and be home, and kids at a particular age that were not necessarily self-sufficient. So all of those things came together to be to the reason why we did what we did.
Yeah, so just let's go a little bit to Rich Coast, and let's describe people that there's two businesses on the I want to call it the campus. You know what I mean, as far as what you guys have going on, and directly across from each other, and just talk a little bit about Rich Coast and your dad starting that one many years ago.
Yeah, my father Lance started that in 1978 out of this house. The house was our garage. One side of the garage was the service shop. The other side was where the coffee was kept. And little by little, we built another warehouse next to our home. And that's where the coffee was kept. And then the entire garage turned into the service shop. And little by little, over 13 acquisitions of other coffee service companies over the years, it just grew and grew, honestly, larger than we ever intended. And then we actually did a little contraction over the last 10 years to be a little bit more specific to the service area that we can really control. And that was a kind of a grown-up decision that, you know, when you're first building and you're growing and things are great, you realize that the whole concept of a service-based company is only as good as the reaction time to being able to be there. So even though we were selling more then, we felt that was also not necessarily the right realm of where we wanted to be for the type of coffee service that that people expect. And if we can't be there within 24 hours to fix something, especially a customer that we really want to maintain, there's no business or there's no reason for us to have business in an area that if we can't maintain that quality of service.
And when you're doing this is so everybody understands, this is a wholesale operation. Do you have your own private label brand during the wholesale operation? And then how many accounts and what radius?
Yeah, we do. We have our own Rich Coast line of coffees, our own blends. We buy all of our coffee from the Commodities Exchange. And so we're in control of all aspects of it. The radius that we currently operate is roughly 100-mile radius from Lewistown right now. So we are still encompassing a very large area, but we were in Maryland and Lehigh Valley before. So we got out of those particular areas specifically to kind of focus more on rural Pennsylvania. That tends to be a better fit for the style of coffee that we make. I touched on a little bit before, but we've never really chased the trends on the coffee side. We've kept a particular mild, medium roast level for most of our coffees, even through the Starbucks boom of coffee blending and sourcing, mainly because we just always felt like we wanted to appeal to the coffee drinker and not necessarily to the frappuccino drinker. So that's kind of I'm glad that we held strong to those principles back then.
Yeah, some of those trends and fads came in hard and quick and then left, and everybody was stuck with a lot of equipment that was useless at that point too.
Right, and I equate a lot of that also to how we've treated beer,
Yep.
from the idea that the fads, and we just didn't go when hazy IPAs were super popular. We still kept maybe 2, at most 3 out of our 20 that we have on tap. That was all that we would ever make. And now we maybe have 2 at most at any one time. But then same thing with fruited sours or any type of thing that just kind of was beer du jour. We've always kind of kept that at something that if it doesn't necessarily make sense for us, we've luckily been able to avoid doing something we don't really feel is too. I mean, we will always want it to be complementary to the experience here and what we can, and not only what we want to make now, but also our consistency of making it in the future.
Let's talk about building a brand, and this accounts for both coffee and beer side of your enterprise. Talk a little bit about why it's so important for you to keep a 100-mile radius. A lot of times I meet on here and founders, and it's like, we're going to be national, we're going to be regional, we have distribution, we're all these things. And I'm not trying to pick on it, but at the same time, talk a little bit about why it's so important to keep, like you talked a little bit about it for a second there, about the 24-hour notice of a fix or anything like that. I believe it goes deeper. So let's kind of elaborate so that other founders that might have aspirations of national might realize the importance of building your home base at a real foundation prior to ever expanding outside of those markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think you first have to look at the dilution that happens from that, personally, right? So you're like, how can I spread myself to a particular point where it becomes fallible, where your personal dilution of what you can do and how you're going to train other people to understand how it works. And I'm not a new age kind of guy, and like the culture that we create kind of person. Like I think that's it's more about leading by example. My wife and I, when we're at Shy Bear, we're touching tables, we're talking to people, bussing tables at the same time. We are doing all of the things on a personal level that should rub off on the rest of our staff. And I feel that that's the same way that this works with how you would want to build something in distribution, is that those personal touches and being able to send somebody a thank you, and being able to know that you're stopping into a place personally, even if I'm not the delivery driver, I'm not the salesperson, I don't have a direct interface with a customer, that the only way that really makes any impact in today's world, I believe, is if you're still making the personal touch to it. And I think you just have to look at how can you do that. Now, if you have a larger family and everybody in the family is involved and they have more tentacles, so to speak, then I believe then then your growth is limited by your ability to do that. But I think in this day and age where customer service and 800 numbers and chat and AI chatbots are the only way that you can possibly get an answer to something, I think that the only way we can differentiate ourselves is by being a place that you call our 800 number and there's a human that answers the phone. That's my philosophy, and I believe it's something that people are still grappling with the idea of growth versus that personal touch.
When you were growing up and dad was running in Rich Coast, you were, let's say you're 15, 16 years old when I'm asking this story. What's going on, and like what was it like as a kid growing up with, I assume both parents were involved in the business and everything like that, and you're living there.
Yeah.
So it is consuming every part of your life. Was that something that was like intriguing to you at that age, and you were like, I'm definitely going to continue this? Or were you of the track at different points where you're like, I got to get away from this as fast as possible?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards the latter. As most teenage boys are concerned, I was thinking that I was going to have a life in something much more fantastic than living in central Pennsylvania and doing all of this. Um, Between being a professional athlete or being a rock and roll drummer for Motley Crue, I mean, there would be flights of fancy for sure. But deep down inside, I enjoyed the entrepreneurial aspect to being able to see and do everything that you want to do, and you kind of create your own schedule, and as long as you're putting the work in, the work can show itself as being fruitful. In today's age, I mean, there's always the before COVID era of our business and the during and after. And obviously it just feels like, I mean, for Shy Bear, for instance, I mean, we've been open for 9 years, and we've really seen 3 specific years of pre-COVID, during and after, and they all feel exhausting. I mean, in so many ways, because there's just like, I can't believe it's only been 9 years. And that's kind of I think the mantra that I look at is that each one of them, I have different areas of pride and hindsight to all 3 of those eras. And but hindsight being 2020, all of the things you would have changed and all of the things I would have known that would have evolved in this business and also in Rich Coast during that time, because obviously the office coffee drinker kind of went away in our business. And obviously not just the people, I mean, I know people are returning back to the office versus where we were with COVID, but we're not at the same place where it was prior to, and we never will. That is, I think a lot of businesses realize that, hey, I don't necessarily need to have a $15,000 a month lease for an office building, that we really didn't see that much of a drop off in our productivity by having this big office. And it's not like I'm not getting customers because of it. So I think there's a lot of things there that can dovetail for us and for other people, with the idea of now finding that where did those coffee drinkers go? And likewise, when we're looking at it from Shy Bear, where did the travelers go? A lot of the people, and obviously when you're looking at $4 a gallon gas, a lot of those travelers are not traveling as much. But I also look at it from a local perspective. The locals maybe aren't going on the bigger, more extravagant trips that they once were. So now how do we try to capture more of that immediate regional audience that once in the summer potentially were not necessarily staying local, but now they are.
I think that's a really important piece, because a lot of times we get hung up on gas prices and, oh, nobody's going to do this, nobody's going to do that. I think when you have a brand like yourself and others like you that have built such a great foundation on their home, it's a repivoting of the marketing to like the little luxuries of life, where it's like, hey, you might not be able to make that trip to, the beach this weekend, but come on over here for, $50-$100 and have a good break from the world or whatever. I think that's, without being negative and dystopian about things, I think it's really the little luxuries that I think we in the beverage industry have the advantage of, whereas the tourism business and different things like that, they're going to get hurt with that. But if we can focus, and we're not going to force people to start traveling, but if we can focus in our neighborhood, we can find people that might want to break from their house and everything like that, and kind of get a little reprieve, let's say.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things afterwards, and I have a fun one too for you. Is we always talk about the negatives of COVID. Did COVID hit anything in a positive way where you realized there was something inefficiently going on or anything like that? Or was it all just chaos and mayhem? I haven't heard anyone tell me anything really yet, so don't worry if you don't have one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was certainly chaotic, mainly because it all fell on my wife and I to do anything that was going to require any kind of income or any type of revenue. Um, that was chaotic, but at the same time, what else are we going to do? I mean, like, there's only so many Netflix shows you can watch. Yeah, so I think that we figured out a way to be able to do stuff, and I think that we collectively had. I think we reacted to what COVID became incredibly fast, and that helped us get traction with our direct to home deliveries. And at one time, I mean, at once the word spread and we were rolling with it, I was doing 50 home deliveries a day, um, and minimum of 3 4 packs that was required for delivery. But we had 2 people just canning and doing as best as they could to fulfill these orders in-house. And my wife was coordinating everything between orders and what I would go and deliver, and she couldn't even come with me because we had too many deliveries to be made. But even Christmas that year, we dressed up as Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, and we delivered beer on Christmas Day that year too. So that was pretty cool. And people were absolutely. I mean, they had the video cameras out. I mean, it was something that was it was pretty fun. I look back on those days and I'm thinking, like, how did we do it? But at the same time, it's necessity is the mother of invention. So it's you just we and so we were the most profitable during COVID, mainly because if you look at it in hindsight too, with the stimulus package that we got from the government, plus the low overhead to pay for the fact that we didn't have the people anymore or the business, and the fact that we were doing that much beer and not food, which generally is a trade out of costs to sales. We are, I think that we were probably the most profitable that we've ever been during COVID, oddly enough. And I would say not just the immediate COVID time or era, but when outdoor dining was the only option, we were, I think, top of mind to everybody, knowing that we had the space, we had the 6 foot separation between tables, we had the ability to get a lot of people under roof in an outdoor setting. We were, I mean, by far inundated. We've never seen sales like that from just like from the moment we opened at 11 to 9 p.m. It was just full. So that was that we've never seen since, that type of support, if you will. So it was, so from that perspective, it was good, but it's not to say that right now isn't good. It's just that was just completely a different era for us. So yeah, I'm not saying I would never want another COVID for a variety of reasons, but for us it was good. It was good while it lasted.
The for the Richco side of things, do you have any customers on the wholesale side that have been with you guys the entire time?
Pretty close.
I was gonna say
Not necessarily. I mean, like we've had, I mean, a lot of them that have like, yeah, I mean, like we've had, I know, maybe not from the very day that we opened. I mean, like our first customer was the Burnham OIP here in town, and it's changed hands over the years and stuff like that. But we've had a variety. I mean, I would say probably in close to our 50 years now. I think we're at 48 years. I would say that we still probably have 100 accounts that have been with us for 40 years or more.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of, whether it's banks and or some small restaurants and we've had a lot of long-term, a lot of long-term relationships that have helped this aspect of what we've done with Shy Bear, but also of any other new beverage aspect or any new beverage project that we're looking at in the future. We have a foundation that is enviable. So we have to figure out, where our placements, what they look like, and what will they really do. And I would harken back to my dilution side of this too, is that you also don't want to confuse the end user on, what kind of company are you anymore. So I think that that's always a part of my mind too.
Exactly. And we talked about, over the years you very much have resisted the trends and the fads, but obviously in the past few months and beyond, your interest in, let's say, the hemp THC and the functional has been more that you're seeing it like I do, where it's a foundational category moving forward as opposed to a blip in the radar of some sort of a line extension or any sort of wild creation in the creativity realm of things.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole with any of the trends, but then you gotta separate the trend from the lasting impression that you want from your brand. Whereas, where would I find the best um, feeling of something that can be complementary to the other beverages we already have? And I guess that's where I would want to place that. And when it comes to the functional beverages, whether it's electrolyte, nootropic, THC, hemp derived, all of the different things, there's a lot of different ways that people will sense that direction will come from the other things that would be complementary to it, I guess. And then so how, that really gets into the weeds. But I think the more that we understand what where the boundaries are for these beverages, is the best way that we can make informed decisions on the way that we want to promote it.
I was shocked. I was interviewing a bar owner in North Carolina, down in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, Tony at AB Bottle Co. And it's a craft beer bar. He had a craft brewery out in Arizona. He's one of us, you know what I mean? Like, and then opened this up, and then got into, when they had the law in North Carolina, they were allowed to also sell hemp beverages and functional. He went all in on it. And I was shocked when I asked him, as a retailer, I said, well, what percentage of this is your business is your revenue if this was to go away? 35%
Wow.
of his bar business at that beach is hemp THC beverages.
Wow.
Now, that tracks with my time. I went out and spent about 2 months in New Jersey interviewing liquor store owners to ask them about that. And it was trending between 25 and 30% of their gross revenue was hemp THC beverages.
It's crazy.
And then I asked Tony, I was like, if you lost these, what would that mean to your business? And he, straight up on camera, he's like, I probably would have to close. He's like, I don't think I can afford a 35% hit after COVID reduction and things like that. So with that part said, in Pennsylvania, for our audience to understand this goes around the country, and every state's different. And a lot of states are used to seeing hemp beverages in liquor stores. Pennsylvania, the only law that exists on paper is the inverse, the reverse of that. So we can't sell it in liquor stores. You can sell it everywhere else. What would that mean to your business on both sides if this law, if House Bill 2309, the hemp beverage bill in Pennsylvania, passed, and then you'd be able to have not only a beverage license for your retail spots, but also you could buy a beverage license for distribution and everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that would, from the Rich Coast side, where we don't have any alcohol, any issues there. We're not, we don't use any of that to transport any of the alcohol. So I would say that would be the natural fit for what we're doing there. I assume PLCB will still have a particular opinion, in addition to the wholesalers lobby, on how it would impact anything from our G license. So I assume that there will be no intermingling.
Yeah, so you would basically you would buy a hemp beverage bolt-on license, which would be a permit, and they'd run it similar to the way they ran the RTD spirits permits a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
So you also, you would, and also, exactly. Like a distributor would be able to buy a distribution license for it. Manufacturer would be on manufacturer's license, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, then that's certainly a possibility.
Yep. Yeah. So when you look at the future of this, let's say that never comes through or anything like that, is there ever a feeling like you don't really need to expand because you're working so deeply into the weeds of where you are right now? Or is there expansion in the future where you have, you want to look at some other parts of Pennsylvania or possibly, and I'm also, to be fair, speaking of both sides, I guess, whichever brand you want to choose on that question.
Yeah, both. I mean, right now I have, too early to tell you the details, but I have some big news coming soon on a couple different things. So and it's involving both coffee and beer together. So those are certainly in the hopper. Some legal obligations to still to discuss and figure out. But yeah, everything that we look at right now is both. There's really not a benefit for me to look at anything right now in growth that wouldn't include both entities at the same time.
And it's more than just a coffee beer, right?
Yes. Much more than that. Yeah.
You're bringing back the what was it, the coffee IPA or whatever?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The coffee IPA. I mean, why not?
I make fun of it, but I had one at Rogue out in Oregon, and I actually really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. Like I thought it was, I saw that it wasn't for everybody, but it was a weird thing I enjoyed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way it's like how it's extracted, right? You can do, there's a lot of ways that you can really get a lot of interesting body off of coffee, depending on how it's extracted. If most people will do some sort of cold brew situation of infusion into a stout or a cream ale, or a lot of different things that I've had in coffee brown ales. But the way that but you can really get some interesting lemony type of acidity off of coffee that is strange, from the concept of, if you don't necessarily grind it, if you just put whole bean into a bright, for instance, I mean, you can get a lot of really interesting lemon notes off of it that I wouldn't even imagine unless you try it. So it's a pretty fun thing. You're not just getting full on roasty notes or any of that. I guess some people would consider it almost like leather tobacco types of precursors. But there's it's an interesting product for a lot of things. I mean, on top of gravies and sauces that we use in the restaurant, coffee does a lot of things for purposes.
When you talked about the choices of the styles of beer, are you still brewing, or do you have a brewer now that does the brewing?
I've never brewed anything here. I used to brew when I worked in Charlotte for the second oldest brewery that ever existed. It doesn't even exist anymore in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that was late 90s, and I'm telling you, that was ice to Eskimos. I mean, it was the NASCAR fan of Charlotte, North Carolina of the late 90s was like, Coors Light was on the upper level of acceptability on the flavor profile. I mean, it blows my mind to think of what Charlotte is like now, and breweries on every other corner, because that was not the case in the late 90s, for sure.
No, yeah, Coors Banquet was the most bitter beer that was on the lineup.
Yeah, it was just like, whoa, that's way too strong for me.
That's a full body beer right there.
Yeah, give me some of that Coors Light. Oh man.
Though, so like when you're choosing the beers, then I guess to brew, and I'm sure the brewer has a play in there as well. Is it always based on kind of the sales stuff, or is it really based on kind of the mood and kind of experimentation, or a combo of the two?
Yeah, well, Roger McKelvey is our brewer. He's been our brewer for almost 8 years now. Roger and I have an excellent way of communicating each other's reasons for why we do what we do. And I think collectively we are both of the same mindset for 90% of the time. He's always trying to exercise a particular type of his brain or uh, just curiosity. Like if we put these things together, I'm sure it will taste like this. And then I also have to temper those expectations with how is it going to sell? And at the same time, not limit the creativity because of it just selling. I also need to know that everyone has an itch, and if we don't scratch it here, we're going to have to scratch it somewhere else. So I would love to say that we agree 100% of the time, but that's not reality. But at the same time, we have a commonality of understanding that in the end, if it sells and people are enjoying it, and I wouldn't even say from what they say on Untappd, and that's a whole other um, thing about Untappd. And I don't see, and I admittedly, I don't see Untappd as a terrible tool for the industry. I see it more from the idea that it's overused for the sake of gamification.
Yes.
If it wasn't, if somebody doesn't like a sour and they rate a sour, then I don't feel that that's the use case that you should be using the app. But if for the idea of critiquing, giving some honest feedback from somebody that isn't talking to you and they can be a little bit more anonymous with what they're saying about it, I have no problem with that. Even though a lot of other people say, well, what type of opinion do they have? Well, they just bought the beer. I think that they're entitled to an opinion of what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. So I don't see it as polarizing as a lot of other brewery owners or brewers do, but we do look at those and we look at it from the objectively. But we're not going to create our beers based on BJC standards or what that beer is supposed to be, and if it has any type of phenol type of thing in there that it's immediately thrown out. Like I don't look at it that way. I look, because we don't make our beers to go up for judgment in that kind of capacity, and we don't also make our beers for the idea of getting only 4.5 rated beers, because then all we would make is IPAs and pastry stouts. I mean, if that's what I was looking for, then that's all we would ever possibly.
We're all going to be 500 pounds and hopped up if everybody starts doing that. You know what I mean? I think that was my biggest wake up call right before, like 3.5 years ago, I got sober, but right before that was like right into that milkshake beers. And I think it was like a year into my sobriety, I started to look back at the calorie counts I was doing. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing 40,000 calories before I even had dinner,
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think, so to go back to like where we put our beers into categories is that we really want to take more of a cultural tour of how we look at these things, and we'll have English, Belgian, um, even French to a point right now, and German, Czech. We try to take the true cultures that have defined beer to this date worldwide, look at those and say, well, why can't we just use these as the foundations to it all? And that's more of, I find, the interesting part of these things. And this year we did a Czech lager, golden lager that we aged on Sakura Japanese cherry wood staves. And so that's the type of thing that I look at, and I look at that beer, and it's not a classic Czech lager, but because we were able to do something different with it, it makes it stand out from the other ones that are in the marketplace, but also something that Roger got to scratch an itch. And that's the kind of stuff that I feel is adjacent to being creative. And I mean, adjacent to being marketing the beers the right way, that isn't just adding store-bought cereal or whatever, the types of things that we think make sense to a particular level. I'm really happy with beers of that nature, because it kind of adds to the anticipation that our customers have with it too.
I want to elaborate a little bit on the Untappd thing, because my perspective is very unique, but also very grounded, I feel like, in it. And it's similar to where yours is, but I blame the people on Untappd. And I want to say that Untappd as a structure is where it needs to be, but I don't think people understand. And I've had this argument with a million people in my entire career in this industry, especially in the heat of when my job was to fly around the country and find new brands and bring them into distribution in Pennsylvania. So my job was to go to places and to discern whether the product was good, the culture was good, the branding was good, and all this. That forced me, and I'm the naturally curious person, hence why I'm doing this podcast and asking you these questions off the cuff. But I don't think people understand, and I want this to be to every consumer, to realize that like every taste is different. And like to live your life, and I'm somebody, again, 3.5 years sober, but I'm encouraging everybody to go drinking and experiment. If you've not gone to a place and said, I'm going to buy 2 to 3 flights at this place and nothing else, just to try everything that they have. That's the way I used to live my life. And not because I was an alcoholic, but because I was a researcher. And that's where it's like, we really went away from that experimentation, and where it's like, oh, well, this beer is only 4.5 stars. Well, you didn't try it yet, because you don't know how many stars it is for you. Because if you actually spend the time and care about this craft, which is where I'm going to go next from the academic standpoint, we are dealing with complex beers. We're not dealing with straight pilsners all the time. We're dealing with Czech pilsners, or we're dealing with Belgian triples. They're complex and they're beautiful in so many ways. And I openly say this. That's the only thing I miss about drinking, is the different types of flavor profiles that I experienced when I would go out. And that's because that was the joy behind it. And we need to get back to that, where Untappd should exist. We need to know a macro level of interest and demand. And I'm a data guy, and that's true. But for somebody to snub a beer because their best friend didn't like it, I'm sorry, guys, but we forgot how our human body is built. Like, you will taste something different about every single thing that somebody else does. That's a fact, because our taste profiles are built on our own unique experiences. There's a neurogastronomy behind all of this. And I want to give compliments for Untappd for doing what they're doing, but I also believe that we're not educating ourselves and our consumers enough to understand that. Try it. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like we're back at the dining room table with my kids, where it's like, there's only a bite on the plate. Try it. You know what I mean? Go get a flight. I always tell people at samples, when I'm standing, even today, I stand in beer distributors pouring out samples, and then people will be like, no, I'm good. And I'd be like, oh, you're driving? And they're like, no, I'm just good. I saw that online. And I always say to them, I'm like, dude, it's 2 ounces of your life. I was like, you'll get it. Don't worry.
It's free. Right. Yeah. You're not paying for it. Right.
So my encouragement is the weird thing that everybody's going to be like, why the hell is he saying this? But it's go try all the stuff. And I'm not saying go drink 16, 20 ounces of every single beer on a tap, but walk into a place, be curious, ask questions, and order tasting order to tasters, order the flights. And I know, and talk with the bartenders, because just like Jason, just like you're saying, man, everybody there is for a passion. And I think sometimes we get away from that, where we're just trying to, not us as the industry, but consumers are just like, I'm either this objective or this objective. I think we all just need to slow down and enjoy the craft of what's inside, not the effect of the craft.
I couldn't agree more on everything you're saying, and specifically when it comes to beer festival. The the excitement around doing it from a brewer's perspective and an attendee's perspective has diminished so greatly in tenure that I think the core part of that has to be back to you are tasting it, to really being able to open your eyes to something that you're tasting because you are truly just tasting it. It's not about consumption as much as it is about tasting. And the whole idea of a taster, and not that you're getting an entire pint of it, is because you are supposed to be comparing and contrasting these things in a particular way that should be more exploratory than it is uh, just based on like having. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to have a good time, and a part of it is doing it socially, and it should be convivial, but it should not also be to the point where you're going to decide which one of these samples I'm going to give you because you're looking at Untappd first before I even give you the sample. I mean, that's, I mean, that's about as bullshit of a reason to be at a festival than there is. But to your point, I mean, it's kind of like one of my favorite movies of all time is Josie and the Pussycats. Was like this whole brain washing idea that we all have in America that just like, well, if they're doing it, then we're doing it too. And that movie couldn't make fun of the American culture of our capitalistic way of how we market something to brainwash people. I mean, it's pretty much a textbook movie to describe what that's all like. And I think that's what's happening in the beer world. We are being told breweries are shutting down. Well, beer is terrible now. We shouldn't be going to breweries. No, some people closed because they really weren't. In some cases, they didn't have enough capital to deal with the costs and the labor, and they wanted to be a hobby. And some are basically at the particular point where they just don't enjoy it anymore. I mean, that happens. People who detail cars, or people who clean homes. I mean, like at a point, it's like it would be fun to do this, and then you also realize that maybe it's not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that doesn't necessarily shouldn't speak to the product or to the concept, because I still find beer to be the most fascinating beverage out there. And I say this as a coffee guy. Coffee is generally pretty monotone in comparison to beer. There's so many different things that can go into a beer that can make it exceptional or mundane. Same ingredients, same brewer, same water chemistry, same everything, and the minute changes that can occur between mash temp, the amount that it's at the rate that it's dry hopped, all of these different things can make so much difference in the final product. Whereas coffee has the same kind of geeky qualities to it in some aspects, but you're not going to taste as big of a as wide of a difference as you will with poorly extracted or moderately extracted coffee.
I want everybody who's watching and listening to really digest what we're saying here at the end, because we talk a lot, and I cover media and all aspects of this industry, and I do talk a good bit about the beer industry declining and the closures, and what can the beer industry do to pivot and grow and expand. And I'm going to put the pressure on the consumers, is exactly what we just said. Nobody's telling you to go out and get drunk, but I'm encouraging everybody to be going out and having a flighted taster. Have a tasting flight, because most times that's only in total 12 to 14 ounces in total. It's not going to do anything to you. What is it going to do? It's going to let you start forcing your brain and your flavor profile and your taste palates to understand what else is out there. I have gone around the country many times trying the craziest stuff possible. I remember one time even being with the guys at Brewdog and trying that the most alcoholic at a conference. I had the most alcoholic beer ever, and I drank it out of a taxidermied squirrel. Literally, the squirrel's lips were on my lips while I was drinking it tasted like scotch. And like, that's the stuff that like I want everybody to get back to. We don't need to be drunks in the alleys. And I tell my stories on this show, and I went too far, and now you need to go do it for me. Go do it for me so that you can continue that and get out there, order a tasting flight, and then order one more after that. You know what I mean? Or two more, or whatever it is, whoever's driving the safest way possible. But experiment. Don't go into your local tavern and buy the same beer every Friday at 5 p.m. because that's what it. Don't go to your local bar and say, what's the highest ABV you got because I had a rough day. Don't do that. Stop doing, because you're going to be what kills this industry. Get out, 100%. Experiment it. Because all of a sudden, you're going to go out there and you're going to go in there with a Pilsner mood or an IPA mood. And I bet you're going to walk home being like, that was a damn good blueberry lager I just had over there,
Mm-hmm.
And also for the men out there, don't be afraid of the fruited beers.
Well, I would say that too. I mean, and with the idea you're saying about flights is that, there's so many people that come in and they get essentially the same, whether it's, the difference. I mean, we see all kinds of people who are really getting flights to try a variety of different things, but typically I find that they kind of stay in a particular lane. And it's like dark beers, like, people who like dark beers, I mean, there's not a single light one in the and then I also always look at that as like almost like the control, of A/B testing and concepts of understanding that there should be a control in between the taste. So there should be a little bit more of a forced one in there to make you almost reset your palate in some ways, and that's where I always find the also fascinating with sours, in that that I always feel like that also allows you to be able to get something a little bit more of a reset if you are having several things in a taster, is that it almost between the different sips, I always will recommend somebody getting a sour in between, just because it really will taste something completely different the second, third time, on top of the temperature changing, of course, of particular beers and higher alcohol beers. If we have that, often they taste 1,000 times better if they are slightly warmer than we serve. So I always recommend people coming back to it too after a particular beer and say, well, just give that 5 minutes and taste it again and tell me what you think then. But
that's a whole, I could go down a rabbit hole of how the temperature changes and everything like that. Like, most people want to drink them quick, and actually, to be honest with you, sometimes letting them sit to room temperature changes everything about it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
In fact, have you ever been to Church Key in DC, Washington, DC?
Oh yeah.
And then they serve the beers specifically at the temperature that they should be served at, and that's even cooler.
I was down there last time. Oh, I guess it was one of the craft brewers conferences that was in DC is when I was down there for something. I think it was Sly Fox when they first did that 360 can top opener. That's I remember being in there, being handed one of those and trying that. Cool, man. Well, hey, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time today. But most importantly, thanks for coming on without any script, without any agenda. And we had our issue on the last one. I appreciate you doing the reshoot and really kind of getting in here and telling your story. I think your story in Pennsylvania and beyond is very unique. Not only is it unique in the history of the coffee into the beer, but also not a lot of people live on the place of their work. And I think that changes the psychology of how you view your business. And I think it changes the psychology of how you live your life. So I was really fascinated to hear how you speak about, I called it the campus, but you know what I mean? Like, it's
definitely a campus.
As being there. And it's one of those things where, and you also have you have a really refreshing perspective on growth. And I think that's something that we get really excited about, growth in entrepreneurship, and we get really excited about expanding. But I think sometimes we don't pause enough to realize which cart is before the cart before the horse, and trying to get ahead of our skis, so to speak. And I'm in my own fault for different things in my entrepreneurial career, but at the same time, it's a cautionary tale. And it's one of those things where being smart about it and being strategic about it is the best way possible. And the fact that even in the headwinds that this industry is seeing, you're looking at expansion opportunities and growth because you have a solid foundation built. And that's what I'm trying to say is you're not looking at it from a scarcity mindset or anything like that. It's like, okay, we're doing good here. Now we can expand out a little bit more. And I think that's how a true Ripple is at its strength. And I think that's I'm excited to see where everything goes for you for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I think it's I always look at it from a zigzag kind of thing. Like when all of the craft beer growth was happening, we were pretty staunch on just keeping everything as is. And now that there seems to be this little recession in the industry, it feels like the right time. When someone's zigging and we're zagging, this feels like the right time to really make some strides. And I think some of the news that will be coming out soon will illustrate that. So
awesome. I'm excited to see it when it comes out. So we're going to close out here for everybody. Like real quick, remind everybody the 2 brands, where to find everybody on social websites and everything like that.
You got it. So Shy Bear Brewing, you can find us at shybearbrewing.com, Instagram and Facebook also at Shy Bear Brewing. And Rich Coast Coffee, richcoast.com is our website for that. You can order anything for home use. In addition to, if anybody's looking for coffee services in the central Pennsylvania area, there's a quick sign-up form in there. We'd be glad to do an assessment for you. We come and look at your equipment and or electric plumbing supply. We supply the equipment free of charge, and we do the delivery for all the products that go into those machines. As long as you're putting our products in the machines we own, then we'll never have a problem. So
Excellent. Well, hey, closing out with everybody, want to remind everybody, thank you, Jason, for coming on. And also remind everybody that while this is called Ready to Drink, we talk about business, we talk about beverages. This is also about human connection. Jason and I, while we do live in Pennsylvania, we've never interacted in person. We've shot some emails over the years and seen each other in the distance at festivals, but we've never shared a beer together or sat and bellied up to a bar. But with that said, that is what this is. This is human connection. This is strangers meeting strangers with no script and no agenda. While you are out in the street walking, put your phone in your pocket, look at the strangers while you're walking by. When you're at the gas station filling up that Rich Coast cup of coffee, look to the person next to you and actually ask them how they're doing and pause and listen to what they say. 5 minutes a week is what I'm asking everybody that listens and watches. 5 minutes of kindness to a stranger every single week, 20 minutes a month. Your life could be full. You could have everything you want, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the husband, the wife, the kids, the picket fence, the dog, everything. Not everybody's in a good spot. 5 minutes of kindness to a stranger a week. Every single person that's listening, it is a mandatory obligation to be in this community. All right. Jason, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, bud.
You have a good rest of your day, bud. You take care.
All right. See ya.